Donald Trump spoke in Iowa yesterday where he said something that, especially in light of recent news, honestly could not be more ridiculous. We have so much to go through in this segment, a lot of valuable information I'm going to throw at you after the Trump clip. So please stick around for all of it, super important. But first, Donald Trump spoke in Iowa, and I want to show you a clip from that. I also want to discuss the way that recent economic news is putting Donald Trump to shame. Okay, it's wrecking his record, exposing his nonsense predictions about an apocalyptic Biden presidency, and it's once again emphasizing the superiority of Joe Biden's economic policy, something that really upsets Donald Trump. So before getting into any of that stuff, let me show you a clip from Trump's speech yesterday.
And if we're not elected, we'll have a depression, the likes of which I don't believe anybody has ever seen, maybe 1929. That's what's going to happen.
So he's predicting that if he doesn't get into office, we're going to be sent into a depression because of the horrible governance of Joe Biden. And before debunking that ridiculous notion, here was him in 2020 making the exact same prediction about a first Biden term.
Because they will destroy this country. Our country will go into a depression, the likes of which we have not seen since 1929, and maybe worse. So keep backing them, but you know it's wrong. And I really do believe it's only habit. That's the only reason you can be doing it.
So he was wrong then, and he's wrong now. His followers, unfortunately, don't care about the facts on this, but we should. So let's go through it. Before getting to today's good economic news, let's recap what we've gone through so many times in the past. Biden came into office in the middle of a crisis. Trump was mishandling the pandemic. The economy was bad, and inflation was about to start spiking as it did worldwide, no matter who came into office. Somehow, despite all those things working against him, Biden was able to take us from that situation, again, unemployment up, wages down, pandemic to bring to an end, all the way to where we are now, just 3 years later. Unemployment under 4% for 22 consecutive months, a 50-year record. 14 million jobs created on his watch, 4.5 million more than we had pre-pandemic. And every time we talk about job growth under Biden, so aggravating. People say, oh, that's just all jobs coming back from the pandemic. That's just all jobs coming back from what we had before the pandemic. That's just false. A lot of it was, but job growth after we recovered all the pre-pandemic jobs stayed stronger than it was under Donald Trump. 4.5 million more jobs than we had pre-pandemic. So Biden is building a stronger economy right after an economic crisis than Trump could after he was handed a solid economy. I was listening to an economist to give an explanation as to how stunning this is, and I tried to find the clip, but I couldn't, so I'll just break it down for you in my own words. So if you put someone to sleep, let's pretend like you put someone to sleep in December of 2019, 4 years ago, right before the pandemic hit. Then you woke them up right now. If they went and looked at the state of the current economy, they would notice that the current economy is outpacing 2019 projections about 2023. Meaning, before we even knew there was going to be a pandemic and an economic downturn because of that pandemic, we didn't think we'd see this strong employment at this point in time. Like I said, I couldn't find the economist's explanation. It was sort of funny, but here's a chart that shows this. We currently have 2 million more jobs than was projected before the pandemic for this point in time. Do you understand how crazy that is? I'll say it again. We're outperforming where we thought we'd be at this point in time when we didn't know that we're going to have a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic and economic downturn right smack dab in the middle. That's how strong Biden's economic record is. So that's jobs. You also have wage growth outpacing inflation in recent months. You have inflation in the last 2 months at essentially zero, bringing the annual inflation to around 3%. And as we've talked about, inflation was absolutely painful, but it was an aftermath of the recovery efforts during the pandemic under Trump and under Biden. And we saw lower inflation than many comparable economies. GDP growth hit 5% last quarter. That's bonkers. That's the opposite of a recession, despite predictions like this.
First, let me say for the record, it's a recession. I'm telling you, it's a recession.
If it smells like a recession, it walks like a recession, It's a recession.
We begin tonight with the Biden recession.
The Biden recession.
The Biden recession.
The Biden recession. The auto industry is in recession. The housing industry is in recession. Retail is in recession. Advertising is in recession.
Recession, it's a certainty.
We have dismal consumer and business confidence because we're hearing recession, recession, recession.
So instead of a recession, inflation is down, jobs up, unemployment down, GDP up. I'll note too that Black and Hispanic unemployment hit their lowest rates in the history of this country under Joe Biden. Just so many crazy things. And here's Gavin Newsom reiterating these points during an interview with Brian Tyler Cohen.
Most significant economic plan, I said it on the stage, I'll say it again to you, since FDR. The CHIPS and Science Acts, the infrastructure bill, the most significant investments in infrastructure since Eisenhower. $1.2 trillion, 550 billion new investments. I mean, we're seeing the benefits of that. California, we just announced this morning, the $6 billion coming into my state, and the tens of thousands of jobs being created just on our first in the nation high-speed rail program because of that infrastructure investment. I mean, he's doing things Republicans dreamt of. I mean, Donald Trump, every week, the punchline, you talked about it ad nauseum. We all have that punchline that was Infrastructure Week. The lowest Black unemployment in American history, the lowest unemployment for women in 70 years, the lowest Hispanic unemployment in American history, the lowest poverty rates for African Americans in American history, the highest insured rates. I mean, across the board, if any one of those things, remember, you hear Trump all the time talking about the lowest Black unemployment under me. He lost, by the way, 2.9 million jobs. That was Trump's, and close to $9 trillion of debt. I mean, and the fact that they're selling that as somehow was a renaissance and in prosperity in the United States, Biden's actually delivered.
And there it is. You don't get to say for years that Biden's going to destroy the economy and then not give him credit when he just obliterates your prediction, okay? You've been obliterated officially. I'm notifying you with this economic performance. Now, I'll of course add the caveat of number one, still so many problems with our economy. And number two, the president doesn't unilaterally control the economy, obviously. But if everyone's going to blame Biden for everything when things go wrong, then heck yeah, they should give him credit when things go right. If they care about being honest and consistent. And unlike Trump, there actually is, as I'll go through in a second, an actual policy record you can point to that had an impact on these numbers. Before getting to that, here is the latest stunning economic news when it comes to, in this case, the stock market. Dow Jones closes at record high after eclipsing 37,000 intraday for first time in history as Fed signals interest rate cuts in 2024. So yet another record broken on Biden's watch. And by the way, another Trump prediction that was oh so very wrong.
If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay.
So the Dow's never been higher. The other averages racing along.
That bell marks a new record high for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, going to close above 37,000 for the first time ever.
Trump should feel ashamed of himself, humiliated by this, frankly. He was so wrong. Bidenomics is working, and the media needs to do a better job of actually covering that, the facts on this. Now, it is always completely fair to ask the question, when someone touts the economic success of a given president, was that just by happenstance, or did the president do something to at least contribute to that good economic situation? In the case of Trump, we've talked about it in the past, you really can't make a fact-based argument for him contributing significantly to the good economic situation for the first 3 years of his presidency, because he was handed a strong economy, and by some metrics, the growth sort of slowed under him. I've gone through the specific figures on that in past segments. I'll link one of them below. Then, of course, Trump brutally mishandled the pandemic, whereas Biden actually has a policy record that's a part of the reason the economy is doing as well as it is. And let's go through it again. What the heck? Starting with the American Rescue Plan, necessary COVID relief when it was absolutely needed, that helped to jolt us out of the economic situation we were in, created millions of jobs. The infrastructure law, large investment infrastructure since the Eisenhower Highway Program, truly historic, creating jobs, revitalizing communities. The Inflation Reduction Act, huge, lowering energy costs, investing in green energy, lowering prescription drug costs, and so much more. The CHIPS and Science Act, making massive investments in American manufacturing, creating more jobs. The PACT Act, expanding veterans' health care. And Biden's done, by the way, more student debt relief than any president in American history. And there's just so much more. We could spend all day talking about it. But those are landmark achievements that are undeniably a significant part of the strong economic situation in the country right now. And no matter how much Fox News lies about Biden, no matter how much the mainstream media seems terrified to give him credit when it's deserved, those are the facts. Now, it's important to point out that Americans largely don't feel amazing about the economy. And actually, that is unfortunate, but it makes sense. It's changing, I'll note, as these effects impact people at home, but that takes time. And it would be sort of crazy if just a couple years after a horrific pandemic and economic downturn, people were just over it and felt great. All right, great, that's in the past. It will take time for even just our psyche to recover from the brutal time that was. And then you add on top of that the fact that 40-ish% of American media, right-wing media, is just dedicated to 24/7 around the clock Biden bashing. They'd honestly, it seems, rather and are rooting on a situation where the economy is doing bad just so Biden's hurt politically than seeing people benefit from his strong record and him benefiting politically. And on that note, here is a fantastic clip we've looked at in the past of White House Council of Economic Advisors Chair Jared Bernstein just crushing Fox News' nonsense on this subject. And he does it on Fox News.
I know you're going to want to paint a rosy picture, but for most people, their experience is not good.
Well, I want to try to paint a realistic picture that's nuanced, that takes into account everything you just said, but also reflects not just what people are saying, which we have to listen to. They are the best arbiters of their economic conditions, but also what they're doing. So we're just coming out of a Black Friday that is already setting records for online buying, between 10 and 16 billion for Black Friday online. We are looking at consumer spending that's been driving this economy forward, posting growth rates that are north of 5%. We have an unemployment rate that's been below 4% for 21 months. Now, what that means in a period where inflation has come down by 2/3, it peaked at 9%, it's now 3.2%.
And wages have not kept up.
So real wages have grown. Real wages, in other words, wages are beating prices now. So is disposable income, by the way.
But for most of that time, they have not.
Correct. So I'm talking about the last 4 or 5 months. If you actually ask somebody like that, and I think you should, because it's important to flesh this out, what do they think of the fact that we've capped insulin prices at $35 a month? What about giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices? What about tax incentives for manufacturing jobs? What about capping out-of-pocket prescription drug costs? All of those are in play. They are legislated, Shannon. They are in the field. And I don't think some of the folks that we're talking to here know enough about that. President Biden likes to say, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. So I just took you through 5 minutes of everything we're doing to try to help precisely that person and everybody like her, whether it's raising real wages, keeping the job market tight, bringing down inflation, lowering costs of gas, of groceries. What do we hear from the other side? Tax cuts for rich people, giveaways to big pharma, helping wealthy tax cheats evade taxes to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. That's who they're fighting for. She is who we're fighting for, and we're going to keep doing it until we reach her.
And I do want to state, by the way, again, as I have so many times in the past, this is not about blindly cheerleading Biden because he's a Democrat. Absolutely not. This is about recognizing, especially because of the current incentive structures in American politics, a situation has emerged that's causing so many Americans to just be misinformed. I instead want to follow the facts so that people are properly informed. And even as a progressive, I don't feel the need to desperately attack every person currently in power just because that could make me look like the most pure progressive, as many seem to try to do. And I don't care about coming off as the edgiest or the angriest guy that I could. I care about giving you the facts. And right now, the facts tell a story of a really successful Biden presidency, of really successful Democratic policies. Presidential historians are coming to me with tears just streaming down their face saying, Luke, there hasn't been a more effective president since LBJ. Obviously, minus the tears, experts are actually saying that. And so just like how people in the media have to be honest when Democrats, all politicians, but also when Democrats get it wrong, we have to be honest when they get it right. And right now, Joe Biden's getting a hell of a lot right. Before we go, don't forget to become a member at lukebeasleyshow.com/membership to get the daily bonus show Monday through Friday. Plus follow me on Threads at Luke Beasley Official, Instagram at Luke Beasley Official, X at Luke P. Beasley, and sign up for the Beasley Brief, a daily morning newsletter that summarizes the previous events by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/brief. And I'll talk to you all next time.